I go out of my way to hire women, right? And I think women are just smarter, more organized. I'm not saying that to clean it up. I really think women are just generally smarter. If they're Chinese, even more, right? I mean, I want to throw a little bit of. Oh, that was a joke, but technically they got higher test scores. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. So I want to start off with a little what they call house cleaning here. So the thing is, the problem here is that we communicate, I guess for lack of a better term here, through chat a lot throughout the week. So last week, Richard, I mentioned something was Biden's fault, right? Richard, corrected me on it. Okay. Full-fledged caught me, red-handed blaming something on Biden that wasn't, that it apparently
and there's
wasn't.
plenty to blame the guy for, just not that one.
Just not that one.
You chose the wrong one.
But the
2,000 good ones.
The point of the matter is, and okay, listen, we're a new podcast and we're still trying to figure each other out. So I guess Richard and I thought we had like an understanding where it's like an unspoken rule where we're gonna keep the podcast civil and argue, because again, so to bring you guys into our world, we argue a lot through text. I mean, we were arguing 30 fucking minutes ago about
it's impressive. It's impressive. It really is.
It's fucking exhausting.
So what threw me off guard is that I'm thinking, all right, well, hey, Richard, listen, I purposely, I graduated high school with a 1.5 GPA. I purposely surround myself by smarter people. I have no shame whatsoever in saying that.
I got kicked out of high school.
Well, yeah, but you're an attorney, you got through the school part. So last week we had a CPA, we got Cadillac that I'll say to anybody, smartest guy I know. All right, Richard might disagree with that. He's the smartest, to Richard, he's the smartest guy he knows, right? So, and we got Richard. So I have purposely put myself in a room where I'm not the smartest guy. No problem. So Richard catches me on this. All right. I thought 100%, it was Biden's fault. It just doesn't make sense to me. There's way too many coincidences. And if it wasn't his fault where it came from, I guess the genesis of it, he could have stopped it and he didn't. All right. Well, whatever. You were right. I was wrong. So what brings this to light is that, and the reason why I'm bringing it up right now is because then Richard through the chat, he's like, oh, yeah, you should have seen I shit on you either you said you shit on me or
no. I said that you had to eat shit on air.
You had to eat shit on air. Oh, I made him look stupid.
Wait, it looks like I'm about to get a plate of shit.
All of that, right? So then I'm like, wait a second, what in our unspoken I guess rule, maybe we should speak it to make it a little more clear. I know we're trying to uplift ourselves, you know what I'm saying? I thought it was more Richard and us against the world. Hey, we're gonna shit on everybody else, but Richard's understanding is no. Let's continue to let's break that rule and shit on Jesus. So no problem. So now if that's the case,
oh God,
then
here we go.
Well, listen, Jesus has to, defend himself because we've made it very clear. Hey, we're one of those, you have to be able to take it, dish it out, the whole situation. So why don't we talk a little bit about how many things you were wrong on the FHA thing?
Sure. I'm going to back up as the poo flinging starts.
Sure.
So I'm trying to find it, and I should have been more prepared for it. So you had a whole
I said that
it was a clip.
I said that the government loans the money when
you said the reason why people do not like FHA is because it takes longer.
I said sellers.
The reason why sellers. Yeah. Okay, so if you know it so well, go ahead and explain. And if you could mention all the times that you fucked up while you were doing it. I'm letting it slide because this is what I do. Well,
no, you should have brought it up.
Well, there's a way to bring it up.
First of all, it's my opinion still.
No, that's not an opinion.
Hold on,
bud.
let me finish. It's my opinion still that sellers prefer to receive offers that are not for FHA loans, which is what I said that day. I said sellers don't like buyers that get FHA loans.
You started off by saying because.
Let me finish. Okay, I said because it takes longer ordinarily to get the loan approved. Okay, well, that's
Dead
what,
wrong.
We,
Okay.
we spoke to one mortgage guy.
No.
Hold on,
This
who's
is
a
my
guy
world.
that believes in lizard people.
No, this is my
Okay,
world all
and,
day.
and
This
he
is my
said,
world all
No,
day.
I'm just saying the guy believes that there's a pizzeria
No, that was just the guy
filled
who's
with
on the
lizards.
chat. That's just the guy who's on the chat.
Why do I know
And-
exactly who you're talking about?
No,
Listen,
because you're on the chat.
Listen, first of all, it doesn't take longer. Then you said that the government lends the money.
I said only the government can afford
Okay.
to loan 95 cents on the dollar.
Right. Well,
Okay.
it's not 95 cents. It's 96.5.
And
But okay.
so even better. That
That's
proves
fine.
my point
That-
more.
Well, just
okay?
I'm just saying. I'm keeping you, motherfucker. I'm keeping you honest here, bro. If we're gonna,
that just
or
proves.
okay, go ahead.
No, that's great. That helps my point.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
all
And then it's true. I misspoke when I said that the government loans the money. The government
because they do what?
they guarantee the
Oh,
loan.
big difference.
Not really.
No,
not
really
really. The
different.
net effect is the same because what happens is that it creates. And here was the whole point. And correct me if. And by the way, Mr. Lizard People agreed that ultimately that loan, is for people with very little money or very little credit. Okay. And what we were talking about that day, the context that day was how in Miami, you have these people that are quick to call everyone a communist for things that have nothing to do with communism. And yet they're the first in line for things like that. Like they love FHA loans because it results in people that they don't have to do shit. It's like, and I use the example, I'm like, hey, I want to buy something. It's $100. I need you to loan me some money. And you're like, how much do I have to loan you? And you're like, $96.50. It's like, fuck, I might as well buy it for you. You know what I mean? So what we were talking about was people that make light of others and they say, oh, you're a communist, this and that. Don't ever get an FHA loan, bro. Go get yourself
What we
a
were talking
conventional
about
loan.
is irrelevant in this particular matter. I want to make sure that you understand that if we want to play the fucking game, then let's play the game.
I love it.
I love it. Listen, what I personally rather do, I think we will digress so fucking far that we will spend the entire damn podcast arguing.
But people
so that's
might
why
like
I'm trying
that.
to, but yes. But
People might like that. I'm
a
just
little
saying.
bit.
Drop in the chat if you prefer arguments.
for a little bit. So my humble opinion is that, listen, man, we argue the rest of the time. We have 18 years.
Let's not argue here.
Just this one.
Okay.
Just this one.
sure.
And then, you know what?
So hard though.
Well, I know. I get it. But what I want is that, so again, if you notice, listen, bro, I tell these guys, hey, on the Instagram and everything, hey, listen, put these guys, promote. Like, there's more of you guys than there is of me on the fucking
but the
Instagram.
podcast has your name on it. It's like,
Doesn't matter. Exactly my point.
Hey,
and still, you guys.
who do we have to kill
And
to
still,
get
you guys
to get it renamed?
the graphic designer. So the point is, we're promoting.
I just have one question though.
Yeah.
About the technical setup today. Where are the fancy screens where we see each other?
Oh, it was outside.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I taught a class today, so it was outside. I didn't even think
damn,
about it.
I
It makes
feel
a difference.
naked.
I actually rather not look at myself there. I mean, it's pretty alarming, the shit on your face and the
I know,
hair.
that's why I wanted to.
What do you call entradas?
just how
What do you
stupid
call
we-
entradas again?
Entrances.
No, that's the literal.
That's a literal translation.
No, what's this called in like the
Hairline?
No,
Receding?
like receding
Receding hairline.
So
yeah.
dude,
Yeah.
that shit freaks me out because when you're there it is.
Which,
So-
by the way, that's an interesting topic as a complete aside. Words in Spanish for which there is no direct
Bunch.
English translation.
a bunch.
Yeah.
A bunch.
There was one that was driving me crazy, but I think I finally found it.
What?
Estrenar. Estrenar, right? In Spanish, that means use for the first time.
Yeah.
So I think it's debut. Right? You debut your shoes. This sounds wrong.
Yeah.
In Spanish, you're like, oh, estás estrenando zapatos.
Estrenando is
You know,
there's a
like,
word. There's a
you're-
bunch of them. There's
Yeah.
a ton of, and there, by the way, there's a ton of words that I rather use. Spanish got it figured out more than
Yeah.
English. So
Well,
I'll be
yeah.
like, oh, everybody speak, and I use the word.
Yeah,
Like
it's
desagradable is one that I use all the time. There's not a really like
The French have a phrase for that. It says it's called le mot juste, which means the right word.
really.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Well, the French have a word for everything.
While we're talking about this, so we're making everybody uncomfortable here. Let's kind of like, why the fuck haven't you learned Spanish yet? Can you at least admit because you just don't feel like it? And obviously you can do it.
He's like, is this America?
Right. That listen. That's what I'm getting at. I hope my boy.
He's like, why don't y'all motherfucking y'all
Listen,
need to learn some English?
That's exactly my point, and that's what I'm trying to pull out of this guy. And listen, kind of like we've been friends for a really long time. I consider you one of my best friends. Can we admit that you just because you know what it's fucking America?
You know what?
He's not gonna answer that.
No, I promise you I will answer the question.
Okay.
Your initial assessment is absolutely, when I was a younger guy,
Right.
absolutely. I was just like a big middle finger to everybody. Why the hell should I have to?
In fact, don't even talk to me in Spanish, motherfuckers.
Well, but that all makes sense until you know Cadillac enough, and you know that I've never seen him with a white girl. Every single time he has a Hispanic girl.
Well, let me tell you, he might be brilliant because it reduces the ability to communicate.
There is a component of that.
Of course, it's brilliant.
I've been around them enough to know that. I mean, and when I'm talking about they're not white, I'm talking about they're like just got off of whatever fucking boat it is. You know what I'm saying? Like
Nice.
they barely speak English.
That will definitely get the attention of some of our listeners. They got off a boat.
Oh,
Yeah.
by the way, guys, I came on a boat.
Covered in sea spray.
Listen, I by the way, for you guys that don't know, I literally came to this country on a shrimp boat. Like literally,
I was
El
gonna ask
Campeche
if
it was
a
called.
shrimp boat,
Yeah.
It was a damn shrimp boat. So kind of like, just is it the, you know what, it's America thing, and I get it. Listen, man, we're buddies. I mean, you can just tell me that.
I was particularly irritated as a young guy. You know, I started working for my dad when I was 9. Pretty much everybody that worked for us spoke largely and almost exclusively Spanish, and it was kind of like, you should learn, and I'm like, I don't want to,
right?
You know, because I really don't like looking stupid in front of people, and there's that whole process where you're going to say it wrong, and I've noticed this too. Like in Florida, from
you gotta
English
deal with
speakers,
accents and stuff
if you're a
too.
Spanish speaker and you speak English and it's not good, an American person not going to be like, you idiot. When you speak Spanish in front of Spanish people wrong, they are the first to laugh at you. Like, you moron, that's not how you say it. I'm like, I don't want to be the moron.
You know what's funny is in my office, though, I have staff, you know, that like they speak English with an accent.
English with an accent.
Oh, man, and I just go to town all day.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, they can take it, and, you know, in our offices.
Well, you have
you
to
know,
be able to take it to work.
Yeah, you
there.
have to be able to take it. But, man, it's so funny. Like this one of my staff, and she's such a good sport, bro. But somebody calls the other day from Vision Mortgage, and she's like, you know, she gets it, and she's, you know, we don't use like the technical intercom, we use the Cuban intercom, yelling across the office, you know? And she's like, Fulanita, it's Vision Mortgage.
But by the way, fulanita, that's another one you got to translate. How do you say fulanita?
Fulanita's like so and so.
So and so.
It's like saying so and so.
Okay, see, that's another one. That's another one. No, and Richard is one of those. So, and another thing here in Miami, and look, and I get it, and I'm not trying. I am trying to put you in an uncomfortable situation, but I'm also like saying, like, look, man, I get it. Like, you know, I tell people when the people come to me here in my office, and again, Richard makes fun of it all the time. Most of these people don't speak English. I mean, they don't have to. In Miami, in Miami, you could live 30, 40 years and never have to speak English. So. They don't.
You might not even run into somebody.
You literally might not run into.
So I don't know, and this may be my white bread situation here, but like
what?
Why?
Yeah, in America, I very seldom get a phone call from someone that doesn't have an accent. Now I really don't even notice it anymore. But you know, like
even the good English speakers, like the Miami accent.
Yeah, no, there's always that accent.
Right.
And
I heard I have an accent. People tell me all the time when I go up north that I have an accent.
We do.
Yeah.
I
try to get a detail of it, and I don't know.
I don't, but I know, like I have a bit of one too. And if I get excited, the New York accent starts to work its way back out.
I've never heard it.
Oh, I can hear it. I can hear it.
You can hear it in New York?
Yeah.
Really?
It's a thing. By the way, to be clear, it's been 3 Latin women, dude. There's just 3 of them. I didn't date Latin women for the first part of my life because I'll be honest,
I didn't like them.
No, I was scared.
Oh, really?
You know, like, here's the thing. Like, I'm a guy that likes peace, and I had always heard the reputation is like shoes flying, and like, and I'm like, I just don't need.
It's kind of the opposite. It's kind of the opposite.
You know what? I would after the first one.
White girls are the problem.
It's just their level of comfort.
Yes, I would. I'm not going to necessarily disagree with what your last statement was.
Hey, we're wading into dangerous
I said white girls are the problem. Well, you know, white girls are proud to be less domesticated. Is that what you enjoy about the Hispanic girls? The domestication.
I find that there's less of an expectation of competition at home. So like I felt like in my
you're okay to be the man.
I think the word you're looking for is the submissiveness. I don't think domestication.
I don't know.
Is like,
both.
I don't know that it's
now that I think about it, both.
There's more of a willingness to like, you're better at this and I'm better at this, and let's just.
I'm the man. You're the woman.
As opposed to like,
well, and we're typically Latin women. Their threshold, their pain tolerance for what what is today very popular, like the misogynistic comments and everyone having their place. The tolerance is much greater, I think, among Latin women. Like they expect.
Well, you get certain
things,
countries that the women, like Colombia in particular, I say it all the time. I mean, the Colombian women are bred to be the woman. They are. I've had like long-term Colombian girlfriends. I mean,
none of them want to be American football players.
None. Yeah, right. I saw that.
No competition.
Right. But the ones that I've had, as a matter of fact, when I met my wife right now, she knows that I thought she was Colombian. That's the only reason I pulled up to her because I mean, Colombian women to me are like they're just Colombian. There's just something. It's a step above.
This is the cream of the crop.
It's just a step above. The way they speak. All right. It is the Colombian Medellin accent is the equivalent to a French accent for a European. It is just sexy. It's singing. It's amazing. And those women in particular, and they're not embarrassed to say it, so you don't even have to be politically correct. They are bred to make the man happy. I mean, dude, I had one that used to cut my meat. I would sit when I went to the parties at their house. Listen,
I'm laughing because I know what you're talking about.
Right.
I get it. I was sitting there one day. I was being fed. I'm working. I don't have time to eat. The food is just being put in my mouth as I'm working.
So I remember.
We should rename this podcast.
Oh, we're going to hell?
I just want you to know. No, to the We Just Don't Give a Fuck podcast.
Listen, so I haven't pissed you off yet.
When I would
just wait.
Right.
It's coming.
Tune in next week.
Listen, and my wife now is Venezuelan and not far from that at all, right? Not. I mean, same thing. Raised, like the whole situation, right? But Colombians are just the Michael Jordans of this shit, right? So when I went to a party, I remember my girlfriend at the time getting reprimanded because she wasn't on my shit as much. I mean, she wasn't like hovering over me, feeding me, and like putting the bib. I mean, it's a culture of that, and I think we've lost that in America. I don't think it's ever coming back, right? I mean, it's just a thing.
I don't think it was ever quite as pronounced.
You look at the
either.
50s movies.
Well, have you seen that meme that goes around all the time with the original Battleship box cover? Oh my God, it's amazing! Like the game Battleship, the original
phenomenal game.
The original iteration of the game would come in the box just like it does today, right? But the image on the box was of a father and son playing Battleship at the dinner table, and then in the background was the wife and presumably the sister, the daughter, and they were washing the dishes, like looking back, smiling.
Yeah, hey, look at the men playing men stuff, while we're doing women stuff,
and the women doing women stuff, and it's like obviously they circulate that now as very tongue in cheek joke, but
so I'm very careful on how I raise my daughter too, because I don't want her to be. I don't think she will be the extreme. Which what I find amazing, which is like the Colombian style, let's call it, right? But I also do want her to be a woman. You know what I'm saying? And I do want her to understand and play a role in
just that phraseology, be a woman.
Well,
what does that mean? I think what you mean is you want her to be more traditional.
Okay, that's a.
I think that's a better way to say than to be.
But even traditional would be insulting because, well, what do you mean by traditional? Oh, so traditionally the woman's supposed to be? I mean, traditionally we were in a fucking cave, and when they wanted to do something, you grab them by the hair and pull them outside and do what you got to do. I mean, that's
that if you're not like that, you're not a woman. I think is problematic.
I'm gonna say this.
I mean, that was the implication. You know what I mean?
Let me wade away into the controversy here.
Understood.
I think there's actually a bigger issue here when it comes to females in America, which is that they bought into this line that they have to compete with men on every single thing, and it's wound up with them being very discontent. And what the real result has been, as men in general have pulled back from culture in a very meaningful way. I mean, men have really disengaged, and I find this more and more. The younger the group of women that I'm around, the more this is the case. That men are like, oh, you want to compete on everything? You can do it better? Go ahead. Like, go ahead. And women are doing so much now. They have so much on their plate. And the thing with women is they're tough. They are so, they'll do it.
I got it. But listen, man. So I had a guy.
It's a good thing.
Listen,
they're unhappy
I had
about
a guy. I was at Parrot Jungle. Remember that Parrot Jungle story? When I beat the fuck out of the guy in Parrot Jungle? So we're in a parking lot at Parrot Jungle. So if you guys that don't know, Parrot Jungle is like a amusement park here where they got animals and shit, right? I mean, that's pretty much what you call it. Birds,
fucking
goats,
gardens.
right?
Yeah.
So this guy, my wife, we were with my son. Now he was a baby, and my wife hit the door. We really didn't notice. It's not one of those cases like, oh shit, let's get in the car before anybody sees it. No, it was just she didn't even notice. So this guy
hit the other guy's car. With
while we were
door
putting the
of
kid
your
in the car,
right.
whatever. We didn't notice it or anything. But so this guy approaches the car through my window, right? And starts fucking screaming. The guy was from New York, coincidentally. We've been shitting on New York people for a bit, so let's continue that. So he's full of tattoos, tough guy. Hey, I'm from fucking New York, and that's not the way we roll. And you hit my fucking car, and this and that. And I'm like, dude, listen, bro, just leave it. So my point is it her role to get out of the car? So this guy all of a sudden gets in front of the car and doesn't let us leave the parking garage. So he's banging on the hood door, right? So is it whose job is it to protect the family at that point?
Well, I mean,
is it hers?
Who is best suited for that?
No, man. Of course not.
Well, then what? So where does a burglar comes into the house? Who gets the bat or the gun and goes downstairs?
The reality.
So what the fuck? So why am I? So why am I expected to go beat the shit out of the New York guy? Why am I? No, I want to stay in the car. No, so I find it absolutely fucking ridiculous that listen, a man's a man and a woman's a woman. There's certain things, and I get the equal, and I'm okay with the equal. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna go further. I'm gonna tell you that women are smarter, right? I go out of my way to hire women. Right, and I think women are just smarter, more organized. I'm not saying that to clean it up. I really think women are just generally smarter. If they're Chinese, even more, right? I mean, I want to throw a little bit of. Oh, that was a joke, but technically they got higher test scores. I mean, whatever, it is what it is. But you know what? The point is, I'm expected to defend the family. I'm expected to do certain things, right? When we stop at a gas station, I'm the one getting out and putting gas.
I just want to get home to a hot plate.
Well, okay, so listen, bro, and I know your wife very well. She's not the masculine, I'm the man type, so don't fucking pretend.
No. It's funny you say that.
Like you run the show.
No, I got a great story for you on that. So of course, my old man, who we've discussed a little bit, he
ran the show for sure.
Was the ultimate savage. Okay, to the point.
We can call him an extreme.
To the point of no, you got to go savage. The guy was, it was borderline. It was abusive.
Right.
And as I got a little older,
you realize wait, it's a little too much.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it was
a lot too much.
But like the things that the guy would do and say were like, and it won't translate well in English, but like, for example, at my house, dinner every night was like a production. But when I tell you production, I mean, my father's plate had to be warmed. Okay, like the plate itself would go face down on the stovetop, and it would come to the table warm because, in his view, only a moron puts warm food on a cold plate. Okay, so like the plates had to be warm, and my mom would put it down.
He's not off there. Listen, he's making a lot of sense so far.
And the plate would get put down, and he'd put his hand on it. Like he'd touch it to make sure it was warm. Okay. And he had like these.
Let me write this
down. He had these lessons, okay, like these concepts, and so he would say, salt. Salt is something you can always add, but you can never take it away. So it was
Again,
don't oversalt the fucking food.
Yeah.
Okay,
he's making sense so far, though.
And in his, my mom would occasionally, I guess, put too much salt on the food. Okay, and so one time. We're having pork chops, which was like one of 4 items we ate at that fucking house growing up. Okay, Cuban style pork chops, and they bring the pork chops to the table. And we always had like a help in the house. There was always a lady that would help my mom and shit.
Right. How would she get treated?
And oh my god! And so,
how low on the totem pole was she?
Imagine. So they bring the pork chops, and my old man and he cuts into the pork chop and he takes a bite, and he's like, he throws the fork down, and he's like, "This fucking pork chop is too salty." And so his anger would build, and this would happen a lot, that like it would be a disaster, and then they'd have to start over. He would send the food back like in a restaurant.
Right.
Okay, like the food's going back.
So it would have to get cooked again.
Make it again.
Right.
Okay, like fucking unreal. And so the older...
I'm not going to tough through it and eat it salty or put some water on it.
No, bro.
Right.
Go make it again.
Right.
Okay? And so the older I got, the less tolerant I was for these shows. And I would start to like, kind of try to defend my old lady and shit, which never ended well for me. Okay? Right. But this one time... so like I try the pork chop and I'm like, it's not that bad. And he's like, the fuck it's not. And this is all in Spanish, He's like, oh, the fuck it's not. It's horrific. And then he like takes another bite and he's like, it's scraping my throat on the way down, from the salt. And then like my old lady finally is like, she takes a bite and she's like all demure and shit, the way she would cut, she was taught in the finest schools. She'd take a little bite. She's like, Arnold, it's not that salty. And he said something like, of course not, because the vein that goes to your taste buds is connected to your asshole. Okay. And so in Spanish, this sounds much smoother. Okay? But early on, and this gets back to my wife thing, early on, I'd go to my then girlfriend's house and I would tell these stories.
By the way, her parents are very traditional too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would tell these stories to my future in-laws,
the gypsies,
and my mother.
Am I supposed to call them that on air?
It doesn't matter. My mother-in-law was mortified that I was going to be like my dad. Okay, and she was like, she didn't
because
like
she had
me
experienced it.
She didn't like me at the
right, but sometimes she had experienced him a little bit.
She hadn't met him yet.
So how did she know?
Me telling the stories of how I would get there and tell this story thinking it was very funny. I found this all to be very funny. And I remember that, like, looking back now, and she would say it, she would tell my girlfriend after, she would be like, you better put your fucking place. Like, you better make sure that you don't get run over like this and that. And so what's funny is that, you're right. My house is I think far more traditional than the typical
Absolutely.
of how it's supposed to be today, I guess, or how it's supposed to be, air quotes. But
right. So we have daughters. What's wrong with?
Yeah. No.
Cindy's your wife is a phenomenal wife, phenomenal, super.
Yeah, I definitely married up.
And just not too extreme in any way, easy to deal.
No,
what's wrong with that?
Nothing. But at the same time, but here's what I think is the right answer, and we were talking about this at the gym the other day. Is that I'm also far better, far more domesticated than my father was, or than even her father is. Like, for example, if we're at an event at my house, we're barbecuing on a Sunday. It's not my father-in-law doesn't serve himself. Like, my mother-in-law has to serve my father-in-law, like the food. Like, if not, he's not eating. Like, he'll sit there and he's like, I'm fucking hungry. Right. And like, she's got to get up
somebody else's,
and she's got to get up and do the plate. Like, listen, I serve myself. Like, similarly, like he never goes to the supermarket. My father never set foot into a Winn-Dixie or a Publix until in advanced age.
Okay,
because
but
that was her job. Listen, I shop. Okay, change diapers.
And you like to cook.
Yeah.
Which is
change diapers is a classic. My dad had 4 sons.
I never changed diapers.
Well, that's
and
funny
I'm
you say
a phenomenal father.
Listen, I don't think it makes one a better father or not.
Well,
it's just
I got my balls busted by people like, bro.
It's just what I'm saying is some
changes. Not one diaper, not one.
Some changes in the division of labor.
Yeah.
Okay. So for example, 4 sons my dad had, and his a funny story is that with 4 sons he only changed 1 diaper. And it was a diaper of mine, a day that I was left with him for like a little while, and I shit, and
situation.
He couldn't believe it. He called my grandmother. He was like, this kid's shit. I think I got to get rid of the whole fucking kid. The whole kid's got to go. And they had to walk him through it, so those are the things that are different. I mean, look, I woke up at night. I changed plenty of diapers.
Okay, but back to the fucking question that I think you're avoiding. What's wrong with our daughters being raised that way?
There's nothing wrong with it.
Right. So also, do we have friends that have less, what's the word? Not domesticated. What was the other word you use?
Traditionalism.
Don't we have
submissiveness?
And this is a total rhetorical question, but do we have friends that have way less traditional wives, and we make fun of them for being pussies?
Yeah.
They run the show. When you go in there, you're almost you have to talk to her too.
Right.
No,
not two. Maybe just. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's
say what you want to say. Would they strap it on?
Well, yeah. And have you also had a situation in business, and let's all bring it back to business, right? That that when you talk to that gentleman, okay, business-wise, he can't make the decision right there because he has to go check with his wife.
Yeah, it's a disaster.
That's a fucking disaster. Yeah. Right? So that's what I'm saying. So there's certain things that all right, a man's a man and a woman's a woman, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I think, and I'm going to go on the record saying that anything, I guess, to reverse that, I think it goes against society. I mean, it just does. And I think it'll get to a point where women are men. I mean,
Well,
will we get to that extreme?
I mean, listen, do we even know anymore? I mean, I'm not being sarcastic. It's like you can be. It's like the comedian. Did you send it to me or did I send it to you the other day? The comedian that was like, I hear a lot of people complaining. Man, I wish I remembered the guy's name so we'd give him credit. But he was like, I hear a lot of people complaining now that in the United States we're losing our freedoms and this and that. But I just want you guys to know it's the opposite. We are so fucking free.
Oh,
here
I sent you that. That
I can wake up tomorrow and right now
And
I can change my mind right now and say I'm a woman, and none of you people are gonna say shit
about
he was,
it.
he was in the crowd talking to the crowd. People are losing it. So I mean, look.
Well, I mean, I think the question that I would ask is: are the people that are different from that happier because they are? And the thing that I've seen in my dating life and previous marriage, whatever, was that there was like this discontent that existed if they didn't establish that
Your divorce was a white girl?
Yes. If they didn't establish they were somehow like my superior, like, and like, I'm not too stupid, right? I mean, like, I can take so much, and at some point you poke the bear far enough, and I'm gonna take and I'm gonna explain.
And again,
to
but
you.
you're also a good husband, dude. You work your ass
but see,
off,
this-
dude. I know you go out of your way to be a good husband.
Absolutely.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you thrive on
prioritize
your role as a
100%.
husband.
But
and
here's the thing, and
so
this is your point, though, and I'm getting there. Being with a woman that's the way that you've described makes it so much easier for me to want to do that. Like, I make it a priority. I buy flowers for my girl every month on the day that we met. Every month I buy it, and I have
Romantic
a
son of a
reminder
bitch.
to do it. Why?
You do that?
Because it's
Absolutely not.
to me, it's a
Not for anything but fucking it. That's a lot of fucking
One more thing to worry about.
God damn.
It's a little thing. It costs $15, $20.
So the first Hispanic girl that you were with that was cutting your meat, and you were like, "What the fuck is this?"
That was the love of my life. There, that was the one. She changed.
You're not supposed to say that because you're supposed to say the love of your life is the one right now.
Revamped the way I.
What nationality are we talking about there? Venezuelan?
Her parents are both from Colombia, but she's Venezuelan.
Oh, so she was a Colombian bred, right?
Colombian parents from Venezuela.
Right. The Colombian bloodline.
Yeah, and so
do you know what part of Colombia?
I love your repeated use of the word bred and breeding as if they're a form of animal. I find it
appalling.
To be, I mean, I just can't believe my fucking ears.
I would actually. It's funny because my wife's not tall at all, but whenever I would see a tall girl, like my thing was like I gotta get a really tall girl. I want my kids to be tall. You know what I mean? Like it was like a thing, and I was like, engage in conversation with the girls. Imagine if we bred, like when a tall girl would be like, man, our kids would be like 6'4", 6'5".
See, you know what's hilarious? I talk to people, and I was just doing it today, about lines that some people could get away with and other people get, like, forget slapped, like shot. That's when most people can't land.
The king.
What if we bred? Like, I don't think I could ever land that line.
Yeah.
You know who the king, and our friends, who's the king of getting away with telling people fuck up shit that you're like, I cannot believe he said that, and they walk out of there loving him?
No idea.
Capo.
Oh yeah,
bro, he'll shit. Somebody will walk into a room. He'll call him fat, ugly.
Yeah. Amazing.
That's an art, bro. That comes from his dad too. That's like a long line. Like he'll just show you're a fucking. And what I realized after figuring him out, I'm like, man, spending enough years with him, I'm like, what is it? Like I was fascinated by this because he smiled the whole way through it.
Yeah,
you fat piece of shit, motherfucker. As long as you're smiling, you could call somebody anything. You go, come here, you fat piece of shit, and you know, and it's like
absolutely.
As long as your body, so that proves that body language is actually way more important than the actual words coming out of your mouth.
Look, I watched.
You tell me all the time. It's not what you. I'm like, all I said is X. It's like it's not what you said. It's how you said
I know.
it.
Well, I know. Well, I think I know you well enough to know what you really meant. That's what I really say all the time.
I've got one. There's this guy that I used to know, and his line, and this guy with women was amazing. His line that he would walk up with was to a group of women, "Tell me the truth, ladies. One finger or two."
Holy fuck.
That was his open.
Jesus.
And I'm like,
can we get this guy on the podcast? You mean you used to know?
Arrested for that shit.
Nowadays,
You will get
life.
You will get flat
in California. You get life in prison
arrested,
for that.
I would watch, and I mean, the response was overwhelmingly.
Now, would he do it like this, or would he do it like this? Because that makes a difference.
He had more. he had more. I mean, like
We've
I
now-
felt bad. I felt
mean,
bad
we-
even
you
saying
wanna
that in the
talk about
podcast.
digressing?
Yeah, I would never. Listen, I'm pretty hardcore, and that's a hardcore one. right
And
there.
that's like, and I say that
he literally can't get away with that now. I'm sure that was years ago.
It was 6-7 years ago. It's not
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
different
not
world,
like
bro.
yeah,
Completely
no.
different.
Well,
world.
I'm separating the whole world into pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. I think everything changed.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, I like it. PC, and you can put it can
know
be
what?
like PC and AC, pre-COVID and after COVID.
Everything
and then,
changed.
And yeah,
everything.
yeah,
The
yeah.
way we shop, the way what we can and cannot
yeah.
say,
the way we work.
everything.
Yeah.
The way we work, everything
Yeah.
is fucking racist.
You know what?
Everything.
I think you can attribute
It's either
that.
homophobic or racist. You can't say
I got
shit.
a buddy of mine. He's very.
Oh, I know what you're
very-
gonna say. That-
he
that-
is
that's a good one.
Very funny, and it is.
That's
so
a great
good.
line. Can we say that line, or is it like?
No, I think you could say it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think until I've been
let's
told
put it
who's
this way:
offended.
it won't even be not even close to the worst thing we've said today. So, I'm having lunch with a guy, and we're talking, and he's complaining about like the changes in the world, and how they are now, and he's like, bro, I'm telling you, bro. He's got this deep Cuban English, and he's like, I'm telling you, bro.
Attorney, right?
I'm telling you right now, bro. Pretty soon, if you won't at least consider sucking a dick, you're a racist.
That is an absolute genius line. If you don't at least consider sucking a dick, you're a racist. It just makes sense, but no sense at the same time. It's a genius. It's fucking genius.
Oh man,
Would he come on the podcast? By the way, he'd be.
I think he would.
Yeah, he
he's
seems
a good
like a
sport.
fun-
He's incredibly funny, bro.
Yeah, that's a fun guy.
He had another good one when they were investigating steroids in baseball. He was outraged by the fact that the government was spending money. There was like
Which is true, by the
there
way.
was literally a congressional investigation into like baseball players.
Yeah. We had nothing to worry about in that particular
And he's
moment.
like, yeah, right. We were fucking
Yeah,
around with
everything
that.
was great,
And
right.
he was like, another lunch we were at, and he was like, I can't believe it, bro. These things. If it was me, I was president, I would walk into that room and be like, everybody, stop what you're doing. We're done with this.
It's a complete and absolute waste of time. But again,
Fucking
everything must have been
wasted.
going. What president was that?
Obama, for sure.
Yeah. Obama was very. He was.
It was smooth sailing, at least
It
at
was.
the beginning. The first 4 years was
The
was
second 4
smoother.
years,
Things
yeah,
started
he
to get a
got
little-
way too pro, whatever.
I think your initial point actually, because I've been rolling it around as we talk about
Why you pick Hispanic women?
No, we can go back to that if you want.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
happy to defend.
I don't
my
even know what our
decision.
initial point was. I thought it was that. Go ahead.
I think it was to put me on the spot. which- mission accomplished.
Right, why you don't learn Spanish.
Oh, there we go.
That's what
there
it was.
that's
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
So the pre-COVID and after COVID, I think I'm going to trail it back to one of my favorite things to pick on and point to, is you had a bunch of people at home stuck alone doing nothing but looking at social media. And if there's one thing social media will do, it'll make you super aware of all the stuff you didn't know that was racist, that you should have been offended about, that you totally missed.
Dude, social media will rot your fucking brain.
It is.
That's what it does.
It is a disease, man.
It's like the word. It's like putting candy in your teeth for like 10 years straight without brushing them.
It's like watching.
Like you want to talk about decay of the brain,
Of
bro.
the mind.
It's unbelievable, man.
Look, I mean, even watching the news, I don't watch the news. I actually get my news from an app, and I have it push the headlines to me to decide whether or not
I even wanna read it.
How much brain cancer am I willing to take in?
Yeah.
In the process of getting this, and where do you even get your news from?
And in fact, let's talk about that. Let's bring that back now to Mr. Peter Schiff
Oh, okay, yeah.
and
yeah.
his
So that was a tweet, right? Was it?
what, is
Or
it
an X?
is it
right,
still
right.
a tweet?
No, but I'm saying, was it a
Yes,
Twitter
yes,
thing
yes.
or was
It was on.
It was an X.
It was an
thing.
X post, and it said,
Let me read it.
yeah.
So we're gonna get a little into real estate here. The guy says.
On the real estate podcast,
He says, and I don't know who.
It's very controversial.
I don't know who this person is, by the way, but he says
What's his name? Peter
Peter
Schiff.
Schiff at Peter
Peter Schiff,
Schiff.
you're a moron.
He says banks are in far worse financial shape now on their residential mortgage books than they were in 2008. False statement number one.
Super false.
Then he says,
Wait, but hold on. Why is it false? I mean, the amount of equity.
Yeah, dude.
I mean,
it's just there's
everything
just
was
so much
upside
more
down back
cash in the
then.
market. I mean, come
Right,
on,
come on.
bro.
because they
Come
were
on.
making loans
Come
at
on,
125% LTV.
Yeah,
I mean,
come on, guy.
Peter.
Come on,
You were-
Peter.
You were buying a house.
Peter, you
you
can
were
do better
walking
than
away.
that.
You were walking away with a check.
the banks have so much collateral right now backing up their loans. They wish.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So he says, then it goes on to say, he says, back then, banks only lost money on the small percent of borrowers who defaulted on their mortgages. The small
Super
percent.
wrong, too.
Okay,
It's like
also
40%,
wrong.
I think it was foreclosure
Then he says,
rate.
now banks are losing money on every borrower who pays their mortgage on time.
That might be right, but still, it doesn't make all the other stuff
It's
right.
not every borrower who pays their money. Anytime you see
At
words like,
3%?
listen,
I know, but okay,
if
not
you ever
everybody.
see words
Every,
like every,
all.
Can we change it for most? Can we change
okay?
it for most?
I don't know.
And it makes sense.
I don't know the answer.
3%. If you're lending at 2.6%,
so then he says,
why not? Cadillac? Wait, well, hold on. Why
Because
not?
when did they make that loan? When they borrowed the money to make that loan, the Federal Reserve was lending the money at zero. So the
spread is still 3.
The spread is still the spread, right? The spread hasn't changed. It's just how much they're getting the money for. So they're still making the same spread on a 9% loan and the 2.5% loan because they borrowed the money for the same thing. The 9% money is probably costing them 7%.
yeah, there's no way. Listen, the banks and bankers are smart enough that they're not going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to borrow at 0, I'm going to lend it to the consumer at 3%, and then listen, if the rates go up, if prime rate goes up to whatever the number is, and it's higher than 3, all of a sudden we're upside down. That's just not the way it works, bro. But then he adds, and here's where he gets here's where he goes way over the top. He says, defaults are not the issue anymore. It's the mortgages themselves that are the problem. Banks would actually be better off with more defaults. Then they could tear up the.
Okay, but you got to
3%.
stop. You're skipping points. Okay, so let's talk about that one. They'll be better off with more defaults. In what world does that make sense?
Oh my God.
Nowhere. Well, it only makes sense if you go
other
to his
stupid shit
next
was-
next sentence, which is then they could tear up the 3% mortgages and resell the houses at higher prices with 8% mortgages. Okay.
All right, where do we start?
All right.
Oh my God.
All right, here we go.
So first of all, and by the way, this is
Tilt
not,
lights going on.
and it's not just Mr. Schiff. Okay, it's many people. People are under the impression, especially and I've encountered it here in Miami, where it's like in Spanish they'll tell you "No, porque me quitan la casa," which is translation, they'll take my house away. Okay, and the reality of the matter is the following: at least in Florida, okay, banks do not have the right to take your house when you don't pay the mortgage. Okay, the foreclosure gives the bank the right to cause the sale of the collateral. Okay,
auction the property.
to auction. So what happens is when you stop paying your mortgage and the bank sues you in foreclosure, the objective of that lawsuit is to prevail, right? To get a judgment that says, hey, the bank is owed X, the outstanding principal, the accrued note rate interest, right?
Legal
so whatever.
fees.
Then the accrued and unpaid default interest, right? So all notes say something like your rate is 5%. If you go into default, it's the highest rate allowable by law or something like that. Sophisticated commercial borrowers will try to negotiate for something higher but lesser than the default rate. Okay, so there's the note rate, there's the default rate, then there's the penalties, late fees that accrue, and then there's the attorney's fees that the banks are going to be entitled to recover. So when the bank sues you in foreclosure, these numbers continue to add up, by the way. Every day, daily interest accrues and this and that. And when they get to the end, when they get to the judgment of foreclosure, it's a little piece of paper that the judge signs that says the bank is owed $565,000, and that's made up of principal of $300,000, unpaid interest at the note rate of $65,000, unpaid interest at the default rate of $82,000, whatever the number is, and it adds up to the total number on the judgment. Then that same piece of paper sets a sale date, a date on which the asset is going to be auctioned. Okay. Now what happens is that, I know you know. So what happens is that in the downturn in 2008, which goes back to like the fully erroneous nature of Mr. Schiff's tweet or X or
Statements.
whatever you call it, is that the problem was that the collateral, the houses, had lost so much value that they were actually worth less than what
That's
the
when all the
banks.
short sales.
Right.
Everything was a short sale.
They were, and wait, but let's get to how it became a short sale. So the properties were worth less than what the banks were owed. So when you go to
all
auction,
of them.
right?
By the way,
So
I know
a
you hate
lot.
the word all, but I mean,
A lot.
can we call it 90-something
Most.
percent? I
Most.
mean, yeah, the large
Okay?
majority.
So when you would go to auction, so now let's talk about it. You're a bank, you have a judgment of foreclosure, and you have an auction. The auction is tomorrow. You go on to the computer, right, to the auction system, and you have to set what's called the reserve.
Yep.
Okay, and the bank sets the reserve, and the reserve is the number that the bank will take from a bidder. Ordinarily, the bank's reserve is the amount that they're owed on the judgment. So in our example of $564,000, the reserve is going to be $564,000, right? Back then, the house itself was only worth $400,000.
Well,
So what would happen is that no one would come and bid the reserve. And so when no one bids at the reserve, what happens? The property does not sell at auction. Yeah. And for $100, this is how it is in Florida, okay, or how it was back then, for $100, the bank becomes the high bidder. And once the bank becomes the high bidder, the property then transfers ownership of the property.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of time that the borrower has to come back.
Yeah,
like 10
some
days,
redemption, 10 days. Doesn't matter, but let's assume none of that happens. 10 days later, assuming the buyer does not exercise the right of the borrower does not exercise the right of redemption, the property ownership of the property would transfer to the bank via what's called certificate of title. Okay, and so at that point, the bank owns the house, and we had this phenomenon in our industry of what we called the REO, which was the real estate owned property, which was properties that were owned by banks.
That banks hated that stage.
Of course.
Hated it. They hated it. Had to upkeep the property.
Of course.
It was a nightmare for them.
So this notion,
More
though,
than
that if you default...
That banks love foreclosures, that's absolutely wrong.
Not
they
just
hate
that,
it.
or that if you default on a mortgage at 3%, that the bank, quote, tears up the mortgage and resells the house at 8%. I mean... Mr. Schiff, you skipped 50 steps. Right. You skipped having to accrue.
They don't get the house.
They go right.
They don't get the house.
You skipped the part about non-accrual. Then you skipped the part about having to fucking file the lawsuit. Then you skipped the part about having to litigate the lawsuit, which, by the way, you're paying along the way.
And by the way, how long can it take?
Right, 1 year, 2 years. Sophisticated defense lawyer, 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, I had a foreclosure of my career that was like a 9-year case.
I'm at 8 right now.
Okay, it was a disaster. Yeah. And so by then, what can happen? Number one, this phantom margin that he was talking about between like reselling it at 8% and 3% is eaten up in fees, time, carry costs of the property, upkeep, property taxes, which the bank has to pay. Okay, so there's all these amounts that would...
Insurance.
And you have a pissed off owner inside the house that no longer gives a rat's ass about the collateral.
Destroying the fucking property.
Here they would put concrete.
Which, by the way, the term of art, you know what that's called in the law? Waste. When property like suffers like lack of upkeep, when you're the owner and you're destroying the property, that's called waste. Okay, and so all these things just make it so that was just a false.
But here people would put concrete down the toilets on their way out.
Oh yeah.
So they would fuck the pipes up. So you had to rip the whole plumbing out. I mean.
No,
right.
I mean, it's
guys,
just
not
so
fun for the
false.
banks. Not
it's
fun
just
for the
so
banks.
false.
I've seen the kitchens gone. I've seen.
Yeah, they get those. What are those companies called? They come in and
they just strip the house down.
No, but there's a company that's called salvage. They hire us. They get a salvage company. Pay them they get a couple bucks for it, and they take everything: cabinets, tile, everything.
The wire out of the walls.
The wire out of the wall.
But that
pipes.
links back also to the social media thing, because what happens is that it's like, listen, as a real estate lawyer, I honestly do not expect the non-lawyer, okay, to understand the nuances, right? Because to the owner, the bottom line is the same. My house is no longer mine, okay? Like my house was,
cares
quote,
who has it? Yeah,
taken from
somebody
me.
else's.
I get it, but the problem is though that in this time where we're like, everyone has a microphone, kind of like us. I mean, and you see it on some of the comments. Some of the comments that we got this week were like, who the fuck are these guys? It's like, hey, we're fucking nobody. Okay. The better question is, why are you listening to a bunch of nobodies? Okay. Right. But
what does it say about your daily schedule?
What does it say about you, asshole?
Right. You got a lot going on. You're fucking listening. I'm a nobody, but fucking you're listening and you're commenting, bro. You're so motivated by what I'm saying that you're like, oh my fuck this guy. I'm gonna type something up.
But I do want to thank everybody. The negative comments have increased dramatically.
We appreciate it,
and I really do want to thank guys. You want to?
How about that guy Goldblum? You killed that guy. That was
what was it? What did he start with?
He said some shit, but it was so good because you were like, Goldblum, can we ask you to fax your comment next time and make it easier to wipe our ass with it?
Do you remember? That was. So Richard early on kind of trained me to like call him for every stupid shit that I did, and I remember I was like, dude, somebody sent me a letter. that really pissed me off. So I'm like, fuck this guy. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to wipe my ass with it. And I'm going to put it back in the fucking envelope. And I'm going to send it to the guy. I remember calling Richard and telling him, dude, you know what? Fuck this guy. I'm going to just I'm going to wipe my ass with it. I'm going to send it to him and everything. He's like, dude, it's like a federal offense. Or something. What you told me?
You know,
like
it's funny. I don't remember why I talked you out of it. Nowadays, I'd probably encourage that.
Yeah.
The older I get,
how ironic would that be? That's the thing you go to jail for.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember, but the thing is that
it would have been a great story. Man wipes his ass with letter and sends it back.
Florida man.
Right.
The problem is that at that particular moment, I had enough on my fucking plate. So like, I was kind of listening to Richard to be like, listen, bro, like I just got to get out of everything that I'm doing. You know what I mean? But yeah, imagine that guy opening the letter and
realizing what you did is amazing.
Like the letter he sent me.
Oh my God, he wiped his ass with my letter. I mean, it's actually very funny. Nowadays, I probably
I'd be like, dude,
I wouldn't talk you out of it,
and we'll deal with it.
Listen, it's unadvisable, but funny.
Honestly, I think I might even enjoy defending you on this one. This might be worthwhile.
I want to see where this goes.
Yeah.
So that guy. So
I'm
the guy
trying to
told him,
think, what would the claim be? I don't even know what the claim would be. But
you told me it was a federal sending shit through the mail. It was more like a government.
I don't know. Maybe
like a postal thing. You're gonna have to UPS it or something.
Maybe I looked it up. I have no idea.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what. Like I said, nowadays I would
honestly that would be an interesting. The weird things I've looked up for Jesus.
Now I know. Now I know that I'm kind of. It seems like I'm in the clear to wipe my ass and send it to him. But I got to do that before I die.
No, I think
world
that's
beyond notice.
That's an amazing.
The all clear has been issued.
Careful what you send over here, bro. You might get it back covered.
So what
in
I told the guy that commented was like, yeah, why don't you just fax us your next comment so we could just wipe. We could be it'd be easier for us to wipe our ass.
It was funny. I actually felt bad for the guy after that. I'm like, damn, he stepped in shit.
Yeah, let me tell you that a lot of these guys stop. They stop. I would never stop. Like if I was them, like I'm in it already. Like a lot of these guys just disappear, which I find interesting. I wonder if they don't get our comments. Maybe
I think that it's the nature of social media. It's look. People
shoot first, and if you shoot back, they kind of like run and hide.
People will. They're used to taking and putting their opinions out there and not having to defend them. And I think it's the reason why we've seen the breakdown of the rhetoric so much, even in our politics and stuff like that. You know, you just call somebody a name and then run away, and there's like no need to take and defend your ideas. And I mean, I don't know. I enjoy very much talking with people that think differently than me, especially one-on-one. Like when they're in groups, it's hard. But one-on-one, when you talk about somebody that disagrees with you, and just having the ideas hammer back and forth, I enjoy that process. And, you know, it's always try to keep it respectful. And
listen, and that's why, I think the worst thing that Richard ever did, that damn chat that we're on, it is absolutely the worst thing in the world. But and I think it's also really necessary, like to keep us sharp, you know what I'm saying, and to like keep us on our toes.
I want you to know that there isn't a day that goes by. Hey, guys, let's comment now. Let's follow up on one of the prior things we talked about, which was tabla, constitution, and this.
Tabla is another word that it's the exact translation is wooden board, I guess, or board, but it means that you can take it. You have thick skin.
Yeah. You have thick skin. Right. And so just so you guys know, we still have this chat where we would talk about cryptocurrency.
It started.
Right. And then in that chat, there were some guys, and we would occasionally like veer into politics because these guys would say things that made no sense, like the imminent collapse of the banking system, or you couldn't regulate, whatever, just things that make no sense. And so there was this one guy who stood out to me as particularly politically problematic. And so I thought one day I woke up.
That was the best description ever.
No. I woke up one day and I'm like, you know what, man, I'm gonna give this guy some information. No. It started with like I thought I would be able to.
It was a good intention.
Yeah, I thought
But I also think that you were worried that, bro, there was a lot of friendly fire there. There was a lot of people that were just getting hit and bombarded with these text messages that were normal civilians.
Right.
And we were like, this collateral damage. We were killing them.
They didn't
so like,
deserve
let's move the
politics.
Let's move the tougher skinned people to this chat.
Yeah.
And let's leave the softies pretty much on the other one.
So man, I made the mistake.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to say it. I made a grave error of starting this.
Aside
politics,
from the FHA thing you're talking about.
In addition, and remember, these are infrequent, so we're now recording them for posterity. My acknowledgments of error,
of life regrets.
Yeah. And man, I started this chat, and there isn't a day that goes by that I don't see a text.
You don't
that
motherfuck
I'm
yourself.
so close to just like leaving the
Well,
chat.
what people
but
don't
then
know-
that would unleash
Right.
an even worse, like
Are you okay? Are you
a
okay?
Niagara Falls
I don't wanna-
of ridicule.
So every once in a while,
Oh my God, I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
Right. That's why. No,
right,
you
you
can't
can't,
leave because
right.
then it's like I got beat.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
surrendered.
yeah.
I couldn't take it. I mean, it would be worse.
Yeah.
It would be worse. So it's
Well,
like
I would
it's-
add you back on. I would add you back on.
Right. No, I'd be adding back on in 4 seconds, and then every day would be like, careful, bro. He might leave the chat
Right,
again.
right, yes.
I mean, I can script.
well, I guess we're gonna.
I can script.
Hey, be careful what you say around Richard. You gotta censor.
He might get offended and leave the chat. So it's like, bro, no matter how taxing it is, bro, on my
And it is
mental
taxing.
health. No, I just gotta, bro.
But
like
I appreciate it. Let's talk about the good things about
my
it because
fault.
it keeps me very sharp. There's nothing that these commenters could say. Because what happens is that the reason why people don't like doing this, what we're doing right now, is because you open yourself up to scrutiny.
to attack.
To attack and like you're worried about what public opinion.
Yeah, I often say to myself, I'm like, when will this be a mistake? So far, it's been good, but like
Well-
one day we're gonna say something's gonna be a disaster. As soon as we get a little bit more popular,
Right. I think
then it's gonna be more problematic.
Yeah, but I think we should be smart enough to navigate it. You know, I mean, and I also think that when the day comes, we just wipe our ass with it and we continue on. I think the problem when you start paying attention
you don't
to
have
it,
much fucking choice.
yeah, what are we gonna do? You know, so I mean, I think
It potentially can close options off to you. Is the one downside.
and
to
we
it,
also
right?
know that there's a couple particular landmines that if we stay away from,
Yeah.
we're good, and we all kind of know we all kind of know what they are. You
Well,
know
today
what I
you've
mean?
been good at just putting your foot on the mine, but
Yeah,
just not taking it off.
I put a little object on top of it that's
Yeah.
not heavy enough to
I think
explode
a
it.
woman should be a woman.
I just
I was like, wait.
I mean, listen. I'll go. Listen, and here's the thing. I'll go in front of that. There's certain things that I really like. That yes, women should not. Men should not participate in women's sports. I mean, there's certain things that I could.
You
I'll
mean
scream.
biological men because because he's really a woman.
Right. So anybody who's gone through puberty as a man should not be you know there's certain things
my
that
God.
they're just out there, and it is what it is, and whoever wants to come after you for that, I mean, it is what it is. But I think we're pretty good at you know navigating these. So
There's
then
another comedian, man, that he does that too, talking about the navigating. I'm trying to find the clip, so I'm sorry we're not giving you guys credit, but we're being very clear that these aren't our jokes.
Yeah.
But there's a guy that he's on there yesterday, and he's like, you know, he's like, have you ever noticed how we kind of fuck up in language? The white guys fuck up in language by where they put like the bad word when they're talking about, you know, other, races of people, you know? And he's like, you know, because, you know, you could be like sitting there at a cafeteria where you're on the street corner or whatever, and you'll hear like a guy say, and he'll be like, no, because I was talking to this Asian motherfucker, and you don't even hear it. You don't even hear it, bro. Like, you don't even hear it. No problem, bro. The story
happened,
goes
right.
on. But then he's like, the white guys, we usually get this wrong. We're like, you know, I'm talking to this fucking Asian, and people
Right.
are like, whoa,
Right,
what's the
right,
matter
yeah.
with you? You know, and
It
he's like,
cha-
if
it
we
changes.
just move where we put the bad word,
Right, but
you know,
why-
so many jobs could be saved.
why and what I never understood is why is it wrong to say that Asians are good at math, for example? Why is that
No,
wrong?
it's not that it's well.
You can call an Asian whatever you want. That's fine. We can
I
get away
think
with
the
that.
problem is that it's not that, it's the issue of the stereotype. Which, even though it's like a
It's a
complimentary.
fucking fact. Harvard
I get it.
had to change. They got caught changing the math test so that they wouldn't be able to so they would score
Listen.
or it would be Chinese Harvard.
I'm
you know
not.
what I
I'm
mean?
not nearly as funny as Louis C.K., so I won't repeat it. But if you're interested out there, if you're listening,
That guy's the best.
pull up a
in my
Louis
opinion. The GOAT.
C.K. bit that he does about it's called benign racism. Okay, and it's amazing. The guys, I mean, it's hysterical.
By the way, if we call ourselves comedians, we can get away with everything too. That's another thing.
I mean,
So
I
if
don't
we
know.
just
Not too many comedians. I mean, Dave Chappelle can get away with everything, and to me, he's
Louis C.K.?
He's the
what
foremost
got him in
genius.
right, but Louis C.K. what got him in trouble wasn't that. It was the jerking
no,
off
it was
thing.
the jerking off in front of
in
like
front of-
in
in front of he
everyone.
assigned gender to a woman, and then he jerked off.
yeah. But man, Chappelle to me is the greatest comedic
Of all
genius
time.
there is. I mean,
He's
the guy
taking some
is
serious heat.
of course.
He
But you know what he did?
Yeah,
He survived.
You know what he did? Completely wiped his ass with
Yeah.
it. Just kept on going and doubled up.
But dude, the guy
Doubled up.
is. I mean, his jokes are the best.
Yeah,
man.
yeah, he's the
especially
man.
because like they just ring so true. That's
Well,
what people
and
find.
the Chappelle show, I mean, it you know, and again, he makes fun of white people. He makes fun of everybody.
He says it too. He's like,
gets
I'm
their
an
ass
equal
kicked.
opportunity
He ball
buster.
Yeah, and that's what I don't understand because in my regular life, I make fun of everybody.
Yeah, me too.
I make everybody, right?
Part of our charm.
It's just everybody. It's just everybody gets it, right? But then why is there a certain group or certain groups that have to be separated from that? You know what I'm saying? That's the part that confuses me.
Because again, it was like,
And we should probably leave this alone before we start going a little too deep into
that
it.
clip of big victimhood, man. It's the same thing. That idea that there is a whole group of people out there that their very existence is to tell people why they should not be able to let it roll off their back, why they should be offended, and why this is somehow keeping them from success. You cracking a joke about somebody is part of the systemic method that has been founded, the Illuminati behind the scenes pulling the strings.
I believe they call
to take
it-
and keep.
What? You were going to say something?
Never mind.
Thought better of it.
Yeah.
By the
Yeah.
way, did you see
I think
this?
we're smart enough to navigate.
Yes.
Pull up. Pull up.
Traction control.
Hey,
Traction
by the
control.
way, did you see this white motherfucker on Fox News talking about victimhood? He was on.
No.
They interviewed him on Fox News.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you got to
Notice how I said a white motherfucker?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, right. Not motherfucking white guy. Right.
It was about the small town song. And-
Oh, Jason Aldean.
Yeah, and so they were like, this is dog.
Kinda, I don't like how
whistle.
humble you are. It's starting to piss me off a little bit. Why wouldn't you immediately? Can you imagine if this fucking guy would have gotten an interview on Fox News? How soon would everybody know?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, me too. I'll be good. If we get interviewed on Fox News, like how soon does our entire universe
I'd
know
have made
about
a
it?
T-shirt for
I
you
mean,
to wear.
how the fuck? Like how?
And wiped your ass with it before
Like,
you sent
so
it.
let me interview somebody who's actually humble. Like I've never. Okay, so how does it work? Are you actually humble? You're like, I don't want to tell anybody, or do you catch yourself and be like, no, I don't want to tell anybody because I want to be humble. So what is it exactly? Walk me through the fucking point where you're going on Fox News and getting interviewed, right? And then don't tell anybody. How does that happen?
If I had to be really honest, the reason why probably I wasn't super impressed with the work that I did there. I mean, I was glad that I did it. It was a good experience, but I didn't feel like it was my best work.
Yeah, but still,
I mean, look, it's part of how I was raised a little bit too.
Right.
I mean, you and I've talked about it. Like you're a fan of the celebrating the touchdown thing. I was always Barry Sanders was my favorite player. The guy would take and tear people's ankles off, hand the ball to the referee, and walk off the field like it was.
Yeah, like he's done it before.
Yeah, and it's not even so much
Yeah.
that. It's just like even when I wrote my book, right? When I wrote my first book, and my first Latin girlfriend was there. I finished the book, right? And I'm like talking about the next thing I got to do, and she's like, "Stop! You wrote a freaking book. Go out to dinner, throw a party, something." It's just I don't know.
I get it. I
It's
get
something-
the pretend you've been there part, and it happens with my son. Like when somebody beats my son, like it doesn't matter what fucking tournament it is.
They
it's-
celebrate like it's the fucking Super Bowl.
bro.
Of course.
I'm talking about like they jump on each other, and it's the funniest thing. And I explained to him like, dude, you've realized like you are the trophy. The trophy doesn't really matter anymore. Like when they beat you, that's the situation.
win.
And on his own, when he beats anybody, he just fucking walks off. I'd never coached him on that. But here's the problem with that nowadays. I don't know if you guys, how sports, I know you're not a big sports guy. So nil, everything changed, a couple years ago with the
When
nil?
you say nil, NIL.
NIL,
Yeah.
whatever. What,
I just want to make sure people know what we're talking about.
okay.
I'd never heard. For all I know, it's nil, but I've never heard of it referred to.
I don't know.
like that.
I've been calling it nil. Maybe it is NIL, but whatever. Name, image, and likeness. You're allowed for many, many, many years. You weren't allowed to sell your name, image, and likeness. Like you couldn't. You were playing for
unless you were a professional athlete.
Unless you're a professional athlete, so you were the best football player in the world, you couldn't go out and sell a
college.
T-shirt with your name in college. You couldn't go out and
Right,
sell
right,
a
right,
T-shirt
right.
with your name or anything like that. But here's the problem now, and this is where it gets tricky, right? So
It's like being a showboat is profitable.
yes,
Right. It's an
it
income
just
stream.
is
Right.
So,
and if you don't do it, you're missing out.
And the issue winds up being, right, all of this ties back to one of my favorite subjects to teach. I thought I would hate it when I got it, but it's ethics. The idea of who we're becoming. I mean, is it making us better as a society and as an individual?
man.
And realistically, is this doing damage to people's psyche and souls? And I mean, really making
The
them less.
societal decay is
So,
going
is
1,000
palpable,
miles
absolutely.
an
Okay, but in my
hour.
son's
What
sport,
happened to Rome in thousands of years is happening.
so
or
in my
hundreds of years
son's sport, right? Well, which let's call it. It's not football. It's not basketball. Let's call it one of those that there's no future. There's no maybe the UFC or not maybe for sure the UFC, and now they merge so it's a WWE or whatever, right? But there's not really any money in it unless you're a showboat. So now, I mean, the numbers that are getting thrown around, imagine a fucking wrestler that who gives a fuck. Have you ever watched a wrestling match? Maybe you have, right?
Yeah.
But right, and you probably will never.
You just
but
got judged, by the way.
even those guys,
who in this
yeah.
room is most likely?
That's racist. It's because you're blacker than I assume that you think you're right. So if dude, these guys are getting paid $250,000, $300,000 a year to fucking wrestle, but it's not only how good you are, it's
The
what's your
audience appeal.
social
Yeah.
media following, how much shit talking. But in a sport, for whatever reason, that sport is very Cadillac. There's very humble. Like you have to be, and there's a really good wrestler described it as like someone you got to be overly humble. And what's happening now is that's gonna break because dude, you got to start talking shit right now. So you're wrestling a guy, right? Nobody cares if you're gonna beat the guy. Now all of a sudden you say, you know what, fuck you. You beat me when I was in elementary school, and I've been thinking about it my whole life, and I'm gonna fuck you up. I don't know, whatever, And now everybody cares. Like, oh, dude, this guy's been holding that grudge for 10 years, and you're selling it.
Yeah, just like the Colorado State game. The fucking coach was like, "Oh, I take, my mom taught me to take my glasses off and my hat off when I'm talking to people." It's like, dude, you're at Colorado State, bro. Nobody fucking knows who you guys are. You guys suck. You're not gonna do shit. And then it's like Dion's like, then Dion turns around and and then
buys glasses and shit.
Yeah, no, right. Then now everyone on his team wears fucking glasses, bro.
Yeah.
And like all these kids are wearing glasses. And
He
you
bought
see
the whole
them,
team
and
glasses,
they film the practice, and it's like, oh, you made it personal and this and that. And it's like it's just fucking.
But I've always Conor McGregor, the best. I caught myself. He is probably not the best fighter. He's probably top 20. Mm-hmm. He's made the most money by far. Mm-hmm. He was born with a gift, and he is a phenomenal ball buster and shit talker. Yeah. I'm talking about the wittiest.
The walk.
No. But if I send you a clip of the shit he is a witty, funny son of a bitch. I mean, he is ruthless too on the ball busting. I mean, that guy is high level.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it puts asses in the seats. And I mean, here's the thing. My Muhammad Ali, great example. Probably the if you want to point to the guy.
Yeah, the genesis of this.
Yeah. My father
Yeah.
hated Muhammad Ali. He paid to go to Madison Square Gardens to get front row seats to watch Joe Frazier break his jaw. And it was like, he loved it because he hated how much shit. So here's the thing.
He paid to watch him lose.
Wasn't it Down Goes Frazier? I mean,
Yeah.
Like Ali won.
No. There was 3 fights.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And so.
I don't know shit about boxing. I'm not a big boxing fan.
Well, actually, I think it was Foreman that knocked out Frazier. George Foreman that knocked out Frazier. But anyway, Frazier was a tough guy. I mean, really, the poundings that guy took, really impressive. But it works both ways. Because that evil guy, people go pay to see him get the shit kicked out of him.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so it's not just the fans that attracts, the people that like that person. It's the people that hate that person. And that's the reason why. You're absolutely right.
In the UFC, there's a guy, Chael P. Sonnen, right? He calls himself the gangster from Wesleyan, Oregon, right? Is he good? He's good. But he's fought some of the biggest fights in the UFC from Chael P. Sonnen. I mean, so much so he calls himself the gangster from Wesleyan, Oregon, right? And Wesleyan, Oregon is like saying Coral Gables or so he play, you know what I'm saying? So nobody
which means a fancy neighborhood
super
where
fancy.
there are no gangsters.
I remember looking at it and like, fuck, bro, like let
Gangster
me look
from
at
Beverly Hills.
Right.
I googled Wesleyan, Oregon. I'm like, fuck, it's Oregon doesn't sound like Wesleyan, Oregon, and it's the most picturesque.
Right,
little
flower gardens.
And then I looked at
Montana.
property values, and they were like in the millions. You know what I mean? And then he'll give a speech, and and again, so he's talking the shit, and he gives a speech. He goes, you know what? I saw my dad one time, the tires were wasted on our Mercedes. I mean, he makes like the most fucked up obstacles supposedly like a rich kid would go through, you know what I mean? I didn't have a maid till I was 14. You know what I mean? Like shit like that. So, but
I
this
was
guy,
cleaning my own room in
right,
high school.
Right. So this guy's
tying my own shoes.
This guy's fighting the toughest guys, the guys that did go through the and he's fucking making so that those are the things that make sense right now. The non-humbleness,
the branding,
the branding, the in your face, the
catering.
you know what I'm saying? Like it's just and to add to your point, Yeah, that's considered a decay of society when you
It's
can't
funny
even
you
be
say that
humble.
because I was telling my wife the other day, I'm like, listen, we should, like my daughter's a cute little girl and like she hits the golf ball and she's little and she like smacks it. And I'm like, man, we should like start a page of like, girls golf, a girl golf centric page. And we should like, the way you dress her is amazing, or her little outfits, her little swing, her shoes and blah, blah, blah. And my wife she took a gigantic shit on me.
Well, by the way,
She's like, we're not doing that. And
okay,
I'm
but by the
like,
way, you
man,
will
what
do
the
it
fuck?
at some point, okay, when she starts winning these big tournaments, because again, she'll
Yeah.
start getting sponsorships and everything.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something, and that's one thing. My son has an Instagram page. I had my daughter one, and I shut it down and I'm gonna restart it again. But dude, the amount of sick fucks.
Right, that's the problem.
Right, but I manage it, so it doesn't really matter. Like if people think that they're talking to him, they're talking to me. You know what I'm saying? It's like so we both use
But
it.
what do people say?
Oh, hey, how you doing? Hey, you look great in that
Want
picture.
some candy?
Hey, yeah, wow, your abs are amazing. And I'll play along with it sometimes. I want to see how far. And this is not once. This is 20 times.
Shocking.
So now I see the pages and I could tell there's an MO, there's not that many followers and the pictures are brand new.
Right.
Like they put a bunch of them, but you look at the date. So I've already gotten real good at spotting out which the sick fucks are. But yeah, what their game is try to get a picture from the kid.
Yeah.
And then they'll embarrass the kid. They'll say, hey, I'll tell your parents that you showed me this picture if you don't show me more. And by the time you know it, they're meeting him at a fucking gas station and they're getting raped. You know what I mean? So that's the
Dude,
so
it's fucking insane.
so don't ever
bro.
ever give them like actual access. I mean, until they're old enough to like want that kind of activity. You know what I'm saying? So but yeah, it's so listen, man.
I mean, it's like the gymnast, the LSU gymnast, Livy Dune. I mean, she's not. So my understanding is that she's not much of a. I mean, obviously she's a college gymnast.
And what's the last time you
but
watched the gymnastics? I mean,
she's not
you're
going
different
to. She's not going to the Olympics, but fuck, she's the highest paid female athlete in college sports.
Right.
Olivia Dune. She's
Right.
the highest paid female ass.
$3 million a year or something like that.
No. And like, dude, the videos.
How about those
of
calendar
of
twins or whatever? Those Cavender twins.
The videos of the meets, of the LSU gymnastics meets, the people there. I mean, it's thousands of people to see her. And in fact, recently she came out and she had to like, make statements because like there's this video that was circulating. It went viral of the other gymnasts coming out from both teams, from all the teams that were at the meet. And these guys were there screaming, we want Olivia. Where's Livy? Fuck you, you fat
Get
bitch,
out of
blah, blah,
here.
yeah. And it's like, like talking down to the
The
other
other ones.
gymnasts.
Yeah. What the hell do we care about your stupid flip?
And she had to come out and say, this is very disappointing. These are my teammates, blah, 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 the whole thing. But
yeah, she's
again,
she's okay.
Yeah.
As a gymnast,
Right.
in a sport that nobody gives a fuck
but
unless your kid's in it.
She's.
Right.
I mean, she's.
I don't think you could say you
No,
can't say that she's hot. I don't think you can say that.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying she's very popular.
All right.
And it's funny. You know who else too? The basketball
Cavender twins.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Cavender twins. But they actually, I respect them big time. They came out recently in an interview, and they were asked, what do you think about all the negative comments that people make about you? That you're only popular and you're only making money because you show your bodies and shit like that. And they flat out like admitted it. Yeah. They were like, yeah, we know it. We know it's true, and listen, we don't feel bad about it. Like we want to give back, and we want to figure out how we can help and all that. But it's like, look, this is
This is what I got.
It's like I always say, you play with the toys God gives you.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so, it's like that's today's world, man.
Sure, guys, we got to wrap it up a little bit.
Yep, that's it.
No, I think that the point and the one piece I wanted to add in is just we have done so much to move away from toughness and really praising toughness.
No, praising softness.
We praise softness, and what I'm saying is
he's gone away from praising softness.
We don't praise people. We don't tell stories about. I share them with you all the time. My chesty puller stories and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, have you told him that? This chesty puller, funny name by the way, but
well, it was his nickname. His name was like Lawrence, but
okay.
the guy had like a big chest. He was like the most decorated Marine in U.S. history. The guy winds up in Guadalcanal. So if you know what happened in Guadalcanal, the U.S. Navy went and dropped our troops there, and then they got overwhelmed by the Japanese Navy, and so they left. They left our troops there on Guadalcanal, and this guy Chesty Puller had about 600 troops. And without realizing it, they wound up taking on an entire Japanese division of 12,000 troops. With the Navy and
Modern day Sparta.
My Navy guys are out there. Well, we didn't abandon them. We were night supplying. The average Marine between August and December lost 40 pounds on Guadalcanal. So what happened? Did the Marines get wiped out? Forget getting wiped out. They raided the Japanese and stole their food, took the airfield themselves. The 600 Marines against the 12,000. They pushed the Japanese back every step of the way and held and took more of the island until the Navy came back.
Yeah, the quotes, give them that quote.
No, the quote is from the Chosin Reservoir. So the same guy went to the Chosin Reservoir in Korea, which is when the Marines, the group of 12,000 Marines, was entirely surrounded by the Chinese. The 2 UN groups that were up there with them both got wiped out by the Chinese. So the Chinese came across the border. That's how the Korean War wound up. We wound up getting pushed. We had pushed the Koreans, the North Koreans, all the way back almost to the border of China. And then we didn't realize was that the Chinese had come in behind our troops and completely enveloped them. So the 2 UN groups completely wiped out. The Marine group, guess who happens to be there? Chesty Puller. He winds up in a situation, they have over 100,000 Chinese surrounding them. They managed to not only kill like 25,000 Chinese, including Mao's son, right? They managed to get out with all their wounded, all their dead, all their equipment, and 50,000 refugees they bring with them, right? So they say to Chesty when they find out they're enveloped, they say to him, the enemies are in front of us and behind us, and they flanked us on both sides. His response, they can't get away from us now.
What a badass.
Bro.
Oh, even better.
Bro.
Even one of my favorite lines of this story is that, and I'll leave you guys with this, O.P. Smith was the general on the ground with these Marines. They interview him, the first interview with the guy. They say to him, General, how did you manage to enact such a masterful retreat? He says, retreat? Marines don't retreat. We just attack in a different direction.
But he also said the one that perfect. We can shoot in any direction. And hit him.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. We can shoot in any direction. We can't miss them now. His troops, this guy was notorious for being the toughest training guy out there. He'd march his guys 30 miles. They'd never complain. They'd follow him to the end of the world because they'd say, we march 30. Man. Chesty would march 45 miles, marching back and forth, checking on everybody to make, you file. That's tough.
Yeah, that's a great quote, too. I'd leave you with this one from Ayn Rand's book, Atlas Shrugged, which, by the way, is an incredibly popular book. I think it sold, at least 15 years ago, 20 years ago when I read it. As of that time, it had sold more copies than any other book in history other than the Bible.
Yeah, it's a great book.
And
what's it called? I never even heard of it.
Atlas Shrugged. Oh, it's an amazing book.
It's about if all the people that are the producers decide to walk away and go on strike and leave it to everybody else that wants handouts.
The author Ayn Rand grew up in Soviet Russia, and she was completely against communism and
she knew
collectivism.
what it really was.
And a little nuts.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you I'm pro Rand, but
and a little nuts. But so there's a fictional character in there that owns a newspaper. The guy's name is Gale Winand. Okay, and the guy was a tyrant. Okay, and the work and the way the guy worked and the way the guy made people work. And one of the lines in the book that really stuck with me was that she said, the effort he expected from his employees was unbelievable. The effort he expected from himself was impossible. And so.
Hey, talking about quotes, one thing I've been wanting to do, and I'm going to do it now. So I guess the only people in on the joke are the people that actually listen to this. I'm going to do those quotes like with my picture, but get like Aristotle quotes and shit, and put my fucking name on the bottom of it. I want to see how long it takes for these people to start talking shit.
Say that?
Fucking Aristotle said it. So the only people in on that joke are the ones that are listening to this. So enjoy it as these quotes start coming out with my name on it.
Amazing.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Later. Until next time.
Arrivederci.